Tonight, the show that gives you an opportunity to air what you feel and think about the latest development on our political front. Well, a lot is taking place so fast. Therefore, everybody must work hard to stay on the cutting edge as far as making sense of our politics is concerned, and of course, remaining on top of all matters. Tonight, this is Sound Candy Talk Live. 72 people have cast their vote already, and only 42 have liked the video, justified. So from the look of things, the majority of Kenyans think the government need to up their. Glad to report we are back on the main channel as well, and therefore we are asking everybody to join from wherever you are. Sound Candy Talk Live YouTube channel, and we are also live on X as well as extended to Facebook.
Tunaingia vijijini, mijini na hata jijini kukuletea taarifa mchana kutwa. Usiku tunaketi kitako, tunadadavua tukichanganua taarifa na makala muhimu yanayokuhusu wewe na familia yako. Ungana na Bernard Ngozi kwenye Open Forum Political Show kuanzia saa 4 usiku hadi dakika zake kila siku ya wiki kwenye
Tonight, the show that gives you an opportunity to air what you feel and think about the latest development on our political front. Well, a lot is taking place so fast. Therefore, everybody must work hard to stay on the cutting edge as far as making sense of our politics is concerned, and of course, remaining on top of all matters. Tonight, this is Sound Candy Talk Live. 72 people have cast their vote already, and only 42 have liked the video, justified. So from the look of things, the majority of Kenyans think the government need to up their. Glad to report we are back on the main channel as well, and therefore we are asking everybody to join from wherever you are. Sound Candy Talk Live YouTube channel, and we are also live on X.
You are watching Sound Candy Talk Live. You are watching Sound Candy Talk Live. You are watching Sound Candy Talk Live. You are watching Sound Candy Talk Live.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back for Sound Candy Talk this amazing afternoon, the amazing evening, amazing moment, and amazing time that we have gathered here to bring analysis and getting where you are from. So everywhere you're watching, please, I just salute you and say thank you for tuning in for Sound Candy Talk. Today we're going to have a great conversation, and we're going to have a good time together as we are sharing and bringing out our nation for another higher part. And today we'll be checking out a lot of things that are happening throughout the day. But today our major point is on the story of the major point tonight is all about the story about betting. The companies are saying that the betting should be stopped, and others saying that betting should continue. There's another controversy whereby they're saying if they story market.
Unatazama Sound Candy Talk Live. Unatazama Sound Candy Talk Live.
Poured into the streets of Nairobi and Mombasa today, united by one demand: justice for blogger and teacher Albert Omondi Odinson. Protesters are now demanding the arrest of Deputy Inspector General Eliud Lagat, whose name has been linked to the death. The protest, marked by tension and resilience, are part of a build-up to a much larger demonstration planned for the 25th of June anniversary of last year's Gen Z uprising. But as Mary Morki reports, not everyone who set out to protest was allowed to do so.
In the heart of Nairobi's CBD, they marched, angry, defiant, and bowed. Protesters, many young and defiant, are demanding the prosecution of Deputy Inspector General Eliud Lagat, accused of ordering the arrest of blogger Albert Ojwang, and whose name is now synonymous with impunity to these demonstrators. Similar scenes unfolded in Mombasa, where protesters raised placards in solidarity with the man many never met, but whose fate now symbolizes a nation's fury. But here at the coastal city, protesters were met with a different kind of resistance. A planned peaceful protest led by human rights group Haki Africa was abruptly obstructed by the same police officers they were protesting against. Haki Africa's Rapid Response Officer Walid Sketi says they followed the law, notifying the OCS at Central Police Station 3 days in advance as required under the Public Order Act. Police officers instead barricaded the venue and mounted a heavy presence across Mombasa's CBD. 4 protesters were arrested as police moved swiftly to disperse the handful who managed to make it to the streets.
We have security officers that have condoned, barricaded the venue that we were supposed to initiate and begin our peaceful demonstration, calling for justice for the late Albert Ojwang.
IPOA's acting regional coordinator Arthur Hasakala confirmed receipt of the complaint and pledged to follow up, warning that any refusal to allow a protest if legal procedures were followed must be made in writing.
Itafuatilia hili jambo kuona mbona polisi wamekataa nyinyi msiandamane ili hali ni haki yenu, na kama wamedecline, it should be in written communication that these are the reasons as to why we are not allowing you to go ahead and do the demonstration.
Albert Omondi Ojwang, a teacher and political blogger, was arrested on June 16 in Homa Bay for allegedly defaming DIG Lagat online. He was transferred to Nairobi and later died in police custody. Officers claimed suicide, a claim that was later proved wrong by an independent autopsy. Mary Morki, Citizen TV.
A volley of gunfire and repeated rounds of tear echoed across Nairobi for most of the day as protests, initially planned to be peaceful, descended into violence. Armed groups disrupted the demonstrations, and conspicuously, these individuals appeared to operate with the tacit protection of uniformed officers. Ode Francis was stationed along Moi Avenue in central Nairobi and witnessed firsthand the unfolding mayhem.
At around 10 a.m., the streets of Nairobi appeared deceptively calm. An hour later, business along Moi Avenue ground to a halt, with vehicles rerouted. Groups of young men, visibly armed with clubs, roamed the streets unhindered. Some wielding whips as they rode motorbikes. And shortly, more than 5 police vehicles stormed the avenue, deploying tear gas to disperse crowds. Witnesses could not confirm the identity of the armed individuals in civilian clothes.
Anyone that can infiltrate, tuna deal na yeye. We are here to demonstrate. Doing right here to demonstrate right here. We here to tolerate.
Nimesikia vibaya Jo tumelia. Na nasema one time siku zote. One time jo jeshi ni ya ground.
Sasa hii jeshi umeongelea jeshi. Hii jeshi ambayo ni ya ground ni gani na kwa nini mko leo hapa?
Sisi tuko hapa, sisi tulikuwa mboka, hata tuko tuandamane, sisi tulikuwa mboka. Masai nengi. Utadu una retaliate mti yangu, una retaliate. Na diglo ikakuwa hivyo. Sasa inabidi una retaliate juu upigwa pupu na maintain.
What followed raised eyebrows. These individuals were later seen receiving protection from uniformed police officers. One man accused of being an informer was assaulted by demonstrators, an affiliate of the armed group. At the junction between Biashara Street connecting to Moi Avenue, a man caught attempting to steal a phone, only to be revealed moments later as one of the stick-wielding actors infiltrating the protests. Helicopters buzzed overhead, surveilling the unrest from above. Shortly afterward, members of the armed group are seen greeting and walking side by side, with the police seemingly united in one goal: halting the demonstrations. When asked, one individual said, "We stand with the officers."
This street ni tunacheki, hatutaki watu wanaharibu street, sawa? Hatutaki watu wanaharibu street yetu penye si ushinda, unacheki. Ndio maana sisi tuko pande ya Masanze, tunapeleka wale wasikuje waharibu area yetu.
Hizi rungu mmepewa?
Hizi rungu ni zetu, tumeziokota huko Roe za kuchunga watu. Watu wasikuje kuharibu penye si kufanya kazi na pata uradi yetu, sawa?
As the sound of gunfire and beatings rang through the city, one mystery lingered. What exactly is the relationship between these armed civilians and the police meant to maintain law and order?
Businesses have been closed and roads within Nairobi have been closed, with Kenyans asking, were they protesters or goons? Ode Francis, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Now, the Nairobi Central Business District was thrown into disarray as running battles broke out between two rival factions. One group, pro-government, armed with djembe sticks and whips, engaged in confrontations with protesters who responded by hurling stones. It is claimed that the pro-government faction had been deployed to, quote, protect the city from looters, and was overheard boasting that it had successfully, quote, secured the CBD. Ben Kirui reports on a city ruled by goons.
Armed with djembe sticks and whips, the pro-government goons arrived on motorbikes, determined to confront anyone in their path. In their dozens, they stormed the Nairobi Central Business District through Kenyatta Avenue, unleashing chaos as they clashed with protesters and passers-by. What began as a peaceful protest organized by human rights activists and Gen Z demonstrators demanding justice for Alberto Juang quickly degenerated into violence. In retaliation, border operators and a section of business owners turned on the attackers, beating some of them and further escalating the tension.
The situation has now turned into fierce confrontation between suspected looters and the business owners determined to protect their businesses.
In the morning kulikuwa vizuri, kulikuwa sawa, but sasa goons wametoka sijui wapi, wako na marungu na kuambia wamekuja wakiwa wamejihami. I'm telling you, it is so disruptive. Hata mkituona hapa sasa tunaogopa kuenda past 2 meters past here, ni kubaya.
Running battles broke out across the CBD, turning the city into chaos. Anti-riot police caught in the middle, struggled to contain the situation. However, their actions raised the questions as they were seen siding with the pro-government group. Some officers were captured on video escorting the goons as they chased the protesters, claiming to be protecting businesses from looters.
Watu wanang'ang'ana kupiga bizi, watu wanang'ang'ana kupiga biashara. Hakuna haja ati mtu anapiga bizi yake, mtu amepiga bizi yake ati watu wanakuja wanaharibu. Hiyo hakuna.
As the crowds swelled, police lobbed tear gas canisters to disperse the demonstrators. At one point, a faction claiming to represent the business community directly confronted the police, accusing them of aiding the violent mob. Amid the chaos, several individuals were injured. The goons had at some point marched along City Hall Way, purportedly to keep the city safe. What was intended to be a peaceful demonstration ended in violence and fear as police seemingly partnered with armed goons in this latest display of the maintenance of law and order by the men in uniform. Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Extensive coverage of the day's events, today's protests, a sinister turn as police officers and hired thugs joined forces in plain sight. In a scene both brazen and unsettling, hired goons arrived on motorbikes, others armed with clubs and whips, terrorizing innocent passers-by, all under the approving gaze of security forces. So who was behind the organized gangs? Melita Olatenges reports on a night of big questions.
Service to all is the long-time slogan of the National Police Service, which appeared today to donate some of its service roles to unidentified gangs on the streets of Nairobi. Like comrades at arms, police officers served side by side with goons armed with djembe sticks and other crude weapons. The gangs appeared empowered and emboldened, taking frontline positions in confronting protesters right under the apparent patronage of law enforcement officers. It worked like a perfect embedding of two formations serving a common goal: to stop any protests in Nairobi. The armed arrangement comes just days after Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja hinted at some action to keep protesters off the streets of the city.
Demonstrating for your rights is allowed, but we will not allow destruction of property again. Haitafanyika tena Nairobi. Haitafanyika. This country must be a country of the rule of law. So wasijaribu tena. Watanipata town.
The police and hired goons collaboration marks a disturbing turning point in the country's management of public order. The lines between the law and laws of the jungle were blurred as goons assumed police roles under the supervision of the police.
Sakaja! Tumelinda jiji! Na tuogopi wakuja sasa!
The disturbing police-thug alliance was last documented during past protests in Kakamega, Kericho, and Uasin Gishu, where apparently hired civilians stand up with new djembe sticks to fight anti-government protesters. Today's show marks a dangerous descent for the rule of law, as no one is likely to be held responsible for the brazen act of policing by hired goons.
Tumechoka na hii mambo sawa. Leo kazi ifanyike. Jeshi ni ya rais siku zote.
Melita Oletenges, Citizen TV.
The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, KNCHR, has condemned police action during protests on Tuesday, terming it unacceptable conduct. KNCHR says it recorded 22 casualties, including the mask vendor who was shot in the head at point-blank range by a police officer. The Rights Commission has condemned the arrest of protesters, including 4 human rights defenders in Mombasa, despite being peaceful and notifying the police. The commission is calling for the immediate and unconditional release of the protesters. KNCHR has also decried what it calls the massive deployment of masked hired goons on motorbikes who patrolled the streets and attacked protesters and innocent wananchi with tire whips, wooden bars and other crude weapons. KNCHR terms it unacceptable conduct by the police, who are required to discharge their duties professionally and provide security for all persons in Kenya without favor or bias. The commission goes on to say that the conduct of the police not only takes Kenya back to the dark past, but is a sure recipe for creating anarchy in the country. The commission says most of the police officers concealed their vehicle registration numbers and faces with masks and hoods in contravention of a High Court ruling last year that required all police officers assigned to handle protests to be in official uniform and to remain identifiable at all times, adding that when those charged with maintaining law and order break the law with such impunity, they encourage citizens to disobey the law. And businesses in Nairobi's capital city are counting losses after the clashes between police, goons and protesters erupted. The running battles also saw offices closed, with many stranded as transport in the city was paralyzed for hours. Brenda Wanga reports.
What had been intended as protests to demand for accountability over the murder of teacher Albert Ojwang while in police custody last week turned into an all-blown-out clash pitting three groups: the police, protesters, and hired goons. Their chants of peace are stark contrast with the situation in the CBD. Street after street, businesses hurriedly closed, owners keen to protect their investments. They say they would rather lose the day's profits than witness the destruction of their property and their businesses.
Biashara imesimama saa hii, wafanyikazi wengi tunaenda bila mshahara, tumefunga kazi zetu. Tafadhali tunakuomba Mheshimiwa Samuel Ruto. Nakuja kutaunga sasa tena, naona leo hakuna unga. Unaona sasa mtu unalipwa day. Sasa leo imeenda hivyo.
The traders know the drill only too well, and they say they are not taking chances. Scarred by last year's protest that also saw them lose hundreds of millions in revenue, the business owners and those employed in the CBD were not taking any chances today. They say tear gas in the CBD is now becoming synonymous with a bad day for business.
The moment wanarusha hizi kuna commotions, sisi wote tuko affected uko juu, ndo kwa maana tuko hapa, hakuna kazi na.
We are forced to close since the building is under lockdown na hakuna vile biashara inaendelea. And for me,
Goons wametoka sijui wapi, wako na marungu na kuambia wamekuja wakiwa wamejihami. I'm telling you, it is so disruptive. Hata mkituona hapa sasa hivi tunaogopa kuenda past 2 meters past here, ni kubaya.
Many business establishments including eateries, banks, retail outlets, phone shops, boutiques and beauty salons amongst others remain closed for the better part of the protests. Transport services were also affected by the protests that left some stranded.
Yes, we are trying to find a way of getting home, but sasa, as you can see, hakuna magari, watu wa bike pia wameskata, wamejiondoa from the goons.
This is the second time in as many weeks when business and transport has been affected by the protests as Kenyans continue to push for justice and accountability over the murder of Albert Ojwang. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
Welcome back. We continue with our extensive coverage of the events in the country. Deputy Inspector General of Police Eliud Lagat, who stepped aside on Monday, is among those summoned to appear before the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, IPOA, to explain the circumstances surrounding the arrest and death of blogger Albert Ojwang. The IPOA board has approved the summons, but the exact date of his appearance will be determined by the authority's investigations team. Meanwhile, another police officer, Peter Kimani, was arraigned at the Kahawa Law Courts on Tuesday over his alleged role in the murder of Ojwang. Gatete Njoroge reports.
a day after bowing to public pressure and stepping aside over the murder of blogger and teacher Albert Ojwang in police custody. Deputy Inspector General of Police Eliud Lagat is now set to appear before IPOA to record a statement regarding the complaint he lodged that led to Ojwang's arrest in Homa Bay County. Sources privy to investigations confirmed to Citizen TV that a decision to summon Lagat was agreed by IPOA board on Monday. Preliminary findings by IPOA indicated that Ojwang's arrest was linked to the arrest of another blogger, Kevin Moinde, in Gituki Bomachoge Borabu on June 5th. Moinde was taken to Kamukunji police station where officers interrogated him. And during that interrogation, Ojwang was named as a person of interest. That triggered a search that ended with his arrest at Leader Center in Homa Bay. 2 days later, tragically, Ojwang died less than 24 hours while in police custody at Central Police Station. Meanwhile, another police officer, Police Constable Peter Kimani, who was among 3 police officers who took the body of the late Ojwang to Mbagathi Hospital, was arraigned at Kahawa Law Courts. Kimani was arrested on Monday and processed at IPOA offices. Before his arraignment, the prosecution asked the court to grant them 21 custodial days to allow for investigations. Kimani, however, opposed the application and sought to be released on cash bail. The ruling on whether he will be released on cash bail or not is set for Friday. Kimani's arrest brings to 7 the total number of suspects currently in custody in connection with Ojwang's murder. Among them are OCS Central Police Station Samson Talam, Police Constable James Muhwana, and 4 civilians, Jean Amitau, Collins Karani, Brian Mwaniki.
For record purpose,
IPOA has indicated that more arrests could follow as the probe widens. IPOA, while giving a status update to the National Assembly's Committee on Administration and Internal Security, has urged MPs to help fast-track key components of the probe, including the analysis of samples submitted to the government chemist, the acquisition and review of call data from telephone service providers, and the forensic examination of CCTV footage. Gatete Njoroge, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Members of Parliament have voiced outrage following the police shooting of a hawker during protests in Nairobi. The MPs condemned what they described as the use of excessive force by police after the man, identified by witnesses as a masked vendor, was shot. The lawmakers warned that such actions by rogue officers continue to widen the rift between the police and the public. They have demanded the immediate arrest and prosecution of those found culpable.
A country is held together by institutions such as the National Police Service. But we must agree one thing, Madam Speaker. What has happened, for instance, today? A young man selling some items in town has been shot down by a police officer. Selling face masks. Madam Speaker, the young man did not run. He was unarmed. It's just worrying. And one of the roles that the National Police Service has to do is to bring our country together. And the greatest threat now we have is when an institution or leadership loses touch with the people they lead.
It is the role of the National Police Service Commission to ensure that our police are upholding the highest standards, especially in discipline. It is just to also join my colleagues in actually condemning the fact that we had a young man shot today because he was selling masks, he was not armed. And we'd just like to urge our police, Honorable Speaker, to exercise restraint.
A young man has been shot dead. It is very unfortunate because the police have a higher duty of care. Just the way we as members of parliament, we are abused daily, we are even attacked physically, but we restrain ourselves. When you are given to him whom much is given, much is expected. So even if the public goes against you, please restrain yourself.
Even as we condemn the excesses of a number of officers, because it is not all officers, Honorable Speaker. It is a few officers. Just like, Honorable Speaker, even in this house, we are not all angels. There are many of us who have our own shortcomings. And therefore, in every institution, Honorable Speaker, even within the police force, their officers will have excesses, and the law must be allowed to take its course.
Former political prisoners detained under the repressive KANU regime of the 1980s and 1990s have condemned what they call a chilling return of tactics reminiscent of Kenya's darkest days. In a strongly worded statement signed by former detainees, including Odworo Ngwen, Gitobu Imanyara, Gakuo Wamaina, and Wafula Buke, they demand urgent action. They call for the immediate dismantling of all killer squads and secretive units embedded within the Kenya Police Service and other security agencies. The arrest, suspension, and independent investigation with the intent to prosecute Deputy Inspector General Eliud Lagat and a public judicial inquiry into the escalating wave of abductions, torture, and extrajudicial killings nationwide. The former political prisoners say the ghosts of Nyayo House, the Wagala massacre, and the Kwekwe torture chambers walk among Kenyans once again. The Competition Authority of Kenya says it has collected just under 200 million shillings in fines from companies found guilty of anti-competitive practices, despite issuing sanctions worth 1.4 billion shillings over the past 4 years. The authority hopes to bridge this gap in its new 5-year strategic plan. Our reporter Dennis Otieno has the details.
Between 2021 and 2025, the Competition Authority of Kenya, CAK, cracked down on unfair trade practices in key sectors, such as steel and retail, issuing sanctions amounting to 1.4 billion shillings. But so far, only a fraction of this has been collected.
So we don't go there to impose fines for the sake of fines. Number two, between 2021 and 2025, we have reported that from penalties and fines, we have imposed 177 million shillings within that period.
CAK says the shortfall is largely due to legal appeals, prolonged court cases, and staggered payment plans, especially in cases involving large corporations and cross-border players.
What is more clear that the Act gives us is to impose fines of 10% of the cross turnover of any offender in terms of breaching the Act. But again, we have not reached a point where we have imposed that 10% because, again, we are balancing between encouraging businesses to comply and also to impose a fine to show that they have actually breached the Act.
The authority also strengthened the buyer power provisions that have supported the growth and sustainability of SMEs, facilitating the recovery of over 3.5 billion shillings in delayed payments, sanctioned a paints cartel resulting in lower consumer prices, and occasioning consumer savings of 900 million shillings. During the launch of its 2023-2027 strategic plan, CAK pledged stronger enforcement, quicker resolution of cases, and tighter collaboration with the judiciary and sector regulators. The new plan also targets digital markets and essential sectors like healthcare, while boosting protections for small and medium enterprises.
So our goal is to ensure that when it comes to competition authority, the consumer is well aware of their rights and how they are protected under the competition law. And that's the reason we are going all the way to the counties.
No single institution can deliver such an ambitious strategy alone. It requires strong collaboration of ministries, departments, and agencies, the private sector, the civil society, and our development partners.
The authority hopes the new plan will help close the gap between enforcement and compliance.
According to the Competition Authority, the strategic use of penalties combined with increased public awareness and corporate compliance programs is gradually reshaping market behavior and promoting fairer business practices. Dennis Otieno, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on this 17th day of June 2025. In studio, I have Dr. Emmanuel Manyasa from Usawa Agenda. I have Moses Nthurima from Kupet. I have Geoffrey Munari from HELB, and Wilson Session, who is a former member of parliament and a former official with the Kenya National Union of Teachers. Now, this morning we got a message when he told them that CEO HELB is coming, and they said, ask the CEO why the whole semester we have not received any funds, all of them including institutional funds. Back then, like 100 batches would be sorted, and immediately the next day they are paid. As we are speaking, when you go to the official HELB page on X, formerly Twitter, they tell you, we are processing, we wait. Mind you, it's almost a year and an academic year to the comrades. We went there, demonstrated, and they still did nothing. We even suggested to the CEO, if they have run out of funds, they write to the concerned ministries about what is happening, maybe the Treasury or the Ministry of Education. Up to now, hakuna kitu. Actually, we lost a comrade due to frustration and hunger and anger. Do you have a response to this?
Yes. Thank you very much. In this financial year, the budget that we were allocated for loans was 34 billion. And we have been able to dispense of all these funds, and we have been able to support students amounting to 34.6 billion. However, there is a deficit of 13 billion. Now, these monies we are still following up with the National Treasury so that we can get it through the supplementary 3, which we hope that in the next 2 weeks we can be able to be allocated. But what we did is that all the students were paid their upkeep loans. So that issue was sorted out. The issue that we have a challenge with is the institutional funds. And that's what the student is talking about. And I believe that by the end of the financial year, the 13.7 billion will be released, and then we can be able to pay. It's not that the board has got money and we are not paying that money out.
So everything you had has been disbursed?
Yes, everything has been disbursed. We are looking for extra funding so that we can be able to support these students in the universities.
When did you learn that you'd require 13 billion shillings extra?
As the applications were going on. Remember, we were given a court order. And for a long period of time, we could not be able to process any applications. That is part of the problem that we face this year.
That's what I'm asking. Do you know when this was?
This is after the court order was lifted in March.
March 2025.
25. From last year, we had been told not to process any applications. We were left in limbo. We had to appeal this process. And we said that was hurting actually students. And that is what has caused these delays until now. If we had gone through the same process, even last year we had a deficit, but this was sorted out earlier. Yes.
So if you learned in March, when did you make the request for extra funding?
We made the request because we processed immediately in April. From April till now, we have been following up the funds. You know, there's a process. It has to go to Parliament. This process has to be approved in supplementary allocation, and then it goes back to the National Treasury for allocation.
Okay. So what then happens? Because 34 plus 13, that is 40, is it 47? 47 billion shillings.
Yes.
And in the new financial year, what is the proposed allocation? It's about...
we have gotten 41 billion.
Yes, 41 billion. So still falls short of what you require.
Yes, the numbers have even gone up. You see, 41 billion does not also include that. Remember, we are expecting about 200,000 students who will be coming in. So we are looking at more students coming in, so there'll be more demand. But this year, if everything goes well, we are more prepared. Number one, we are enhancing our loan recovery efforts so that we can be able to increase that loan recovery. We are also planning to flout a social bond, a limo social bond in September or October this year, so that we can be able to supplement government funding. The other strategy that we have is to go to the counties so that they can be able to give us money the way we have been doing. We have worked with various counties like Kakamega, Taita Taveta, and others so that they can supplement funding for the people who are coming from their counties. We are also engaging various development partners who can be able to support these students. So we are not fully relying on government because we realize that there are very many competing interests.
Yeah.
The higher education sector was allocated 144 billion in this year's budget. That is 20% of the 702 billion. Which means that with the 144, remember we have universities that are getting grants of 23 billion. TVET sector will also get scholarships of 7.7 billion. 41 billion is going to loans, 16.9 billion is going to scholarships. If you add all that money, you come to 143.
Yeah.
Then 1 billion is left for operational expenses from the ministry to all the institutions, which is still very little money. That is where the challenge is, and that's why I'm saying we will have to get alternative. And this social bond is one of the key issues that we will.
What does social bond mean?
A social bond means it is going to attract philanthropists. It is like an infrastructure bond, but this is social in terms of attracting people who have got money to put into the education sector. We already have got a transaction advisor, and FSD is already supporting us on this so that we can be able to get alternative means of supporting higher education in our country.
So ordinarily, like I think the Ministry of Roads and Transport is issuing a bond to securitize the road maintenance levy fund.
Yes.
Then you talk about infrastructure bond that can be taken by whichever level of government. So this social bond, is it repayable?
Yes, we are going to take it against our book. We have a loan book of 190 billion. And then if we can be able, our target in the first year is about 6.5 billion, which we can be able to bring in and securitize it. We have a loan book of 190 billion.
Yeah.
We will take a social bond of about, we are targeting in the first year about 6.5 billion.
6.5 billion.
Yes, and this money will come in to support the students, current students.
So this is money coming from investors?
Investors.
You will repay them?
Yes, we will repay them because remember we are getting loans. Every day people are repaying their loans. Currently we have...
How much are your bad debts?
Our bad debts currently is, we have a bad debt book of 33.2 billion. Yes, and 293, 122 students are not repaying their loans. However, I've said 293,122 students are not repaying their loan currently.
Not repaying. You know, I'll get to the other partners, but 33.2 billion shillings in bad debts.
Yes, not bad debts, money owed. It's not yet bad because, yes, because we are...
What are the bad debts?
We don't have bad debts as such because our loans are insured. We have a self-protection fund. If a student passes on...
293 students, 293,000 students,
yes,
they account for how much of the loan?
They account for 32.3%.
Of this 33.2?
Yes.
So that's about what, 10, 11 billion?
No, it's 33.2 billion shillings.
Okay,
that is
let me ask
owed.
the question again.
Yes.
The 293,000 students who are not servicing their loans, they account for how much of the debt?
33.2 billion.
Okay, so 33 billion shillings is not
owed.
Paid.
Yes.
And you want a social bond of 6.5 billion shillings.
Yes.
That's almost 6 times the loans that are not being serviced.
Yes.
What is the insurance?
The insurance that they will pay.
That the social bond will be paid.
Yes, they'll be paid because currently 290,000 students are repaying 69.4 billion. Yes. But they are paying on a monthly basis. So what we are collecting per month is on average about 450 million, which can easily service that social bond. Yes.
Okay,
but you
in
see,
in a year, it comes to how much?
In a year, we are collecting about 5 billion Kenya shillings. Remember, if you take a social bond, you are going not to pay in 1 year. You'll pay for a period of, let's say, 10 years. So that money can
But it can be cleared in a year.
It can, but why would you pay in a year?
No, I'm saying
it
can be loaned out to students in a year and it's gone.
Yes, it's gone. And then the next year,
next one.
Yes, another.
Sure.
So you can structure that. And that's why we have a transactional advisor to be able to structure this instrument so that it can be able to benefit our students.
All right. Dr. Manyasa, your take about this education financing, because yes, there are gaps. You can hear him saying the budget deficits, but having to come up with creative strategies on how to finance this, what to do?
Yeah, I think there are gaps in financing education. The problem is that the solutions we offer are unstructured, and they do not respond to the needs. They don't go to the core of the problem. If we talk of, say, and CEO has just mentioned partnering with counties to support, that raises an important question. Where do counties get money to fund a national government function? When they're supposed to be allocated money as per functions that are devolved? Where do they get money to fund national government functions that are not within their mandate? And that speaks to the entire confusion that we create deliberately, I think, to allow pilferage. Why? Because we have spoken about why don't we structure all the resources within the Ministry of Education, all the resources that go to education, so that we know that this is the amount required to fund all our levels of education with transparency, because we have had stories of head teachers are not being accountable. If we can structure and then openly tell Kenyans, this is how much the government is able to raise towards education as its guarantor of the right to education. This is the gap. And then speak to all these philanthropies that are in this country. We have institutional philanthropists. We have individuals who are philanthropists in their own rights. I have been to a funeral of an old man, and I was told this old man has been educating 1,500 children across different levels of education, secondary, university, colleges. But he has left behind an endowment to make sure all those that were already enrolled will finish. So there are so many individuals within Kenya doing their little bit to support education. We could attract these individuals into a pooled fund if we operate with transparency and tell them we need 800 billion. Government has put on the table 600 billion. We have a shortage of 200 billion. How do we raise this money and be able to support? Number three, I think that it's important to set our priorities right. I have said this before, and let me repeat. I expected that this year the housing levy will be a school development levy and put all the money we are collecting from Kenyans, voluntarily or involuntarily, I don't know. But that money could go into upgrading our schools and make those schools worthy the name that they have, and make those schools the foundation in which we will build not just good futures for children, but a good future for the country. Because if you do not invest in education, you're not building a good future for the country. Number four, I think that when I reflect on what is going on in our education and public sector funding of education, it reminds me of the song by Crystal Gale. It rings with the sound of goodbye. I was in primary school when the initial free primary education died. Yeah. We used to receive books, they will cut them into half. When class 1, 2, they will cut them into half. They will give us books, pens, sharpeners. When something good dies, when a good program dies, they don't announce. It just dies quietly. So we just realized books were not coming and parents started to buy. So slowly, schools will just realize that they're not receiving capitation. Unlike the fanfare that came with announcement of free primary education and announcement of free day secondary education, the FINRA will not be announced. It will be quiet. It will be felt by those who are directly involved, the teachers, the parents. You just find yourselves having to meet and find resources. But I think that if we agree that we need a holistic approach to funding higher education, we need to create opportunities for the young graduates who have left school to get into gainful employment so they can repay their loans. Yeah. Because part of the problem HELB is facing today is that for 10, 12 years, young graduates have not been employed. Yeah. So when they're not getting employed, you can't recover the money that they owe. Mm-hmm. And if we continue to invest in them and we do not find opportunities for them to get employed and repay, we are sinking money into a pit. It is very difficult. I don't even understand how he's going to raise money to pay this social bond when majority of the young people graduating out of our universities and colleges remain unemployed. I think that we need to think broadly around that as well as an important factor. It is Higher Education Loans Board should be at some point almost self-sustaining and receiving only minimal support from the government. But that can only happen when the graduates are able to repay, and that is not happening for now.
And for you, Moses, yes, what are your thoughts on how really, I'll get to you 100%, how to really improve this financing at the higher education level, knowing too there has been quite some serious challenges in court up until there was a go-ahead for HELB to go ahead and implement the new university funding model, but with a caveat?
Yes, I think everything boils down to political goodwill. What we are lacking in Kenya is political goodwill to run our education system. I think our priorities are elsewhere, because when a government is elected, they immediately start campaigning. The priorities of this government is in raising money for empowerment of people at the grassroots. So in that process, the education will suffer irreparably, because I think there is this unfortunate belief that when you are seen carrying a lot of money in bags, that is when you are doing politics. But we must remember that countries have invested in education, and investing in the future of our children is where the stability of the nation lies. So you have seen that the government today is talking about accountability in our schools. Yet the Minister of Education, when schools spend, it is the Minister of Education that sends auditors to go and approve books of accounts. Most often than not, what the auditors do is that they ask for money. They tell schools, because your school is this size, we want this amount of money so that we approve our books. These are untold stories.
And do they pay?
They pay, because if you just behave like you don't want to give that money, your books will not be approved, or they will be given issues so that you deal with them at a certain point. So I think we need to be serious about financing education, because the little finance that is trickling down the school, they are also being, waited for by the ministry again. So it is very unfortunate that the government can tell teachers that you are not accounting. We don't know how you are spending this money. Yet they are the one who approves the budget in the schools. So what I'm saying is that we need a political goodwill in this country to finance education, because we have no alternatives.
So what does that political goodwill look like? How does it come?
The political goodwill is where we want to go to education, and whatever budget that we give, we are able to give it on time. Because when we say that even schools collect money over time, we are delaying the future, the investment of these learners. So it is very unfortunate, because now we are blaming We want principals to be seen or teachers to be seen as they are collecting money and they are not accounting. They are collecting that money out of necessity because for quality delivery of services, there must be finances, which is not forthcoming.
Right.
So I would call for political goodwill. When Kibaki was with us here, he just said, I want to give free day secondary education. And he did it perfectly. And that is why you see today, the levels of our awareness in this country is very high. And that is why now people are taking responsibility of mobilizing themselves and telling the government we can't go this way. So let us invest in our children's education.
Mheshimiwa Soswan, your thoughts, especially on that question of financing of higher education in this country?
Yeah, I think a lot of things have been transacted here, even up to and including sports, funding of sports and activities in school. I think since the advent of free education, a lot of bad programs and bad practices have come in, and it has infiltrated the entire sector. And that takes me to what Manyasa talked about, transparency. We've thrown transparency out of the window. We've thrown accountability out of the window. And I think we are getting more and more confused in our operations of the education system. What we need most, indeed, is to strengthen the transparency and accountability systems within. If we talk about sports, sports is domiciled in schools. It is not domiciled in education offices. Schools decide which activities and which sporting activities to engage in. And therefore, any vote head of money that is meant for sporting activities should all be wired to schools. And then the schools...
But it is intended in the ministry.
No, that was a mistake. And remember, when the ministry started taking back, clawing back some of the functions of schools, including even procurement of books. Procurement of books is supposed to be undertaken in schools, and it is the choosing of books is the responsibility of teachers, as provided for in ILO UNESCO recommendation number 60. One of the duties of the teacher is to choose a book which to use. But when we allowed the ministry to claw back textbooks, claw back sports, it doesn't make any sense. For me, that is an avenue of creating confusion, and probably some things need to be investigated in there in terms of why are you asking schools to pay additional money to education officers to fund sports? As far as I know, and having been a practitioner, the sporting events and games, drama and music is funded through the organizations of the Heads Association and through sports and organized groups. We should maintain that pedigree system of running our programs in schools. But when we retain some money at the ministry, we create confusion, and it becomes difficult to engage in thorough accountability in all this. Then for funding of university education, I think the CEO is here. He should be able to confirm that in 2022, HELP was receiving 13 billion from government. And now it's up at 35 billion with the new administration. And in the next financial year, it will be at 41 billion. So really, from 2022 to 2025, because numbers don't lie, if we've enhanced by close to 30-something billion or 28 billion, then I think that is a very tremendous commitment by government. And this is where I answered Nturuma's question. Is government committed? Yes, the government is committed. We should also be prudent and accountable in what the money does, so that we're able to track and we can answer the concerns of Manyasa. That must be transparency. Are we transparent as a country? Or are we going back to the counties? Where is the counties going to get money? Again, yet it's not allocated to finance the national budget. When I look at Kenya compared to many jurisdictions, Sami, because we have been in this space for a long time, a good case has happened in Kenya, where government has really gradually put in a lot of money to education. If we talk about the basic education where Nturuma represents, in this budget, is an additional 7 billion shillings to convert 20,000 teachers from contract to PNP. And an additional, I think, 2-point-something billion to onboard another 20,000, which will bring to 100,000 teachers having been employed by this administration. That is no mean achievement. And that is the commitment from government. Government is committed, and gradually, as our budget grows, we are now at 4.2 trillion. I'm sure next year, allocation to education will be above the 702 billion. Let us appreciate as a country. And having led teachers in Africa, I think Kenya, I have a good case story for Kenya. It has put enough money in education. But I think we should put very strong accountability structures. Even when you talk of sustaining higher education loans board, of course, in a country where unemployment is a challenge, we may not expect the university students who graduate, where there's no employment, to really immediately repay back. And help thinking out of the box is a good thing. And that is why when government agreed that we are putting in more money in education and to higher education, but we must have a renewed funding model that will ensure that money is targeted to students who need more, so that then students from poor households are more financed, unlike before when we had the DUC model, and now with the new financing model, which is student-based and it does banding, then students from poor households are more protected and more financed. And that is why a lot of money is going to help. We must appreciate that, so that collectively as a country, we must work to ensure that as a country, as we put in more money to education, we must have in place very strong transparency practices and accountability. Let us not promote practices that point towards corruption, that we think some people are engaged in practices that are siphoning and pilfering money out of the education system, rather than letting money to go directly to the student services. And this should be protected from basic education to higher education.
Sorry, you've said that the government is converting intern teachers to permanent and pensionable.
Yes.
How much for that?
I think that's about 7 billion for the intern teachers, the 20,000 intern teachers who have been on board for the last 1 year.
I thought that was fixed.
No, they've not been converted.
It was fixed early in the year.
Because no. When I look at the other group that was fixed early in the year, that's a factual institution of memory. The earlier group, that was about 46,000. But there was an additional more who are on payroll and they're interns. Those ones will be converted to PNP.
Yeah, because what I'm saying, from the budget
they'll be converted to PNP within this budget. And then within the same budget,
just a moment,
an additional...
Honorable Session, just a moment. From the budget statement of the Cabinet Secretary, he says he's allocating 7.2 billion shillings for recruitment of intern teachers. There's no conversion.
Now, 7.2 billion includes conversion of the 20,000 teachers who are on internship. There are 20,000 teachers who internship for the last 1 year. Those ones will be converted. And that the ones who were converted, absolutely, that brought a lot of debate, were about 46,000 within the 56,000. But then there was an additional 20,000 to make 76. Those 20,000 teachers are still on internship. And they will be covered within the budget of 7 billion. Yes, that will be verified. Because as a country, data should be open and should be available to all of us.
I think
if I'm making a statement that is not accurate,
different sources of data, but that's fine.
But that is a fact. From 76,000, there will be an additional 24,000 teachers to be onboarded on internship once these 20,000 are converted to PNP within this fiscal year. So it is still provided.
So where is that money for recruiting 24,000 teachers?
It is within the 7.something
7.2?
Yes, it's consolidated for conversion of...
This is indicated, I'm reading what is indicated in the statement. 7.2 billion shillings for recruitment.
Teachers. Yes.
Not conversion.
You cannot recruit 20,000, 24,000 teachers on internship with 7 billion shillings.
The figure is from you. I don't see it here.
Yes, that's what I'm telling you. The 7.2 billion is for conversion of 20,000 teachers who are on internship and onboarding of another additional 24,000 teachers to make it 100,000.
We will let the cabinet
but we can clarify those figures.
Yes, we'll let the cabinet
we can cross-check those figures.
No, because his statement is about recruitment of intern teachers at the cost of 7.2 billion shillings. I will check where the facts lie. That sounds wrong. But
no, that's the truth. That's but we can cross-check that fact.
Where the facts lie.
Yeah, we can cross-check that fact. How many intern teachers are on board? 20,000.
It is okay.
Yeah.
CEO,
additional 24,000.
CEO, you said that, and I think it's an important question that Dr. Manyasa raises here, that you'll be approaching counties to supplement funding to learners. What framework are you going to use?
Before I answer that, and it was also brought about by Manyasa, there is an issue of unemployment, which many Kenyans say that there's a lot of unemployment, which we do agree. But I just want to give you figures so that we can be together on this, and then I'll answer the county issue. From our figures, students who graduated over 20 years ago, 51,594 students holding 8 billion have not started paying. Between around 17 years ago to 12 years, we have 23,786,000 students holding 6.6 billion. These students have not started repaying their loans. And these are the students I'm targeting. Between 1 year and 11 years, because of the current challenges and the economic situation, we have about 230,000 students holding about 46,000. Those ones we can say they are in between transition. 46 billion. Yes, they are 26 billion, sorry. So we are saying in between, they are in between jobs and they are still settling down.
Yeah.
So what we are saying, the older students, you can imagine a graduate of 20 years who has not started paying. And we have gone even down to dig in the professions. 11% of active accountants, those are 2,420, are the only ones who are paying. 2,000 have completed paying. We have got 18,000 accountants who are not paying. And these are the people who are in private practice holding various accounting firms. When you come to practicing doctors, we have only 18% paying. These are 2,115. And we have got 11,701 practicing doctors who are not repaying their loans. When you come to lawyers, we have given loans to over 23,000 lawyers. Only 2,644 have repaid their loans. The rest are not servicing their loans. And you can see where the problem is. When people go out in the private sector, then it becomes a problem. Engineers, 24,803. 1,594 have completed their loans, and now only 894 are repaying. The best profession is teachers. Out of the teacher profession, 44,000 teachers are currently repaying. The only ones who are not repaying are around 3,500 who are in employment. So what we are saying is that you can actually see the problem is that Kenyans who are in the private sector who do not have formal employment, that's where our challenge is. And if these Kenyans can be able to repay, the current student will be able to benefit.
So are you certain that some of these professionals, like the lawyers, the engineers, are you certain that they're in gainful employment as you speak?
Most of them are in gainful employment. Most of them.
So what is that hindrance and how are you approaching it so that they start repaying?
That is why we are first calling on them to honorably come and repay their loan.
They haven't for more than 10 years.
Yes, then we are going to use other strategies. Number one, we shall be able to list them with the CRBs so that when they want to access loan facilities, then they can be able to get a caution and then come and repay. That is one strategy. We also want to see whether we can work with the professional bodies so that before you renew your annual license, you can be able to get a compliance certificate from HELB. The same way, if today you are to be appointed a cabinet secretary, you will have to get a compliance certificate from HELB.
So what trick do you use with the teachers?
The teachers, the good thing is that they are employed by TSC. And once they're employed, the deductions are very easy. And the other thing, private schools have also been very cooperative. It is a noble profession where they believe when we reach out to them through the association, they have a private schools association, they come forward and give their details.
Okay.
Yes.
So talk to me about the structure that you're going to use to get resources from counties. They're already in trouble with the control of budget, and they actually want her out because she's denying them the decision to go ahead and pay bursaries to education, which is a national function.
What we are doing with the counties, and we have already done it with the, for example, Kakamega, we are working with them to look at which resources do they require as a county, human capital resources. Then we go deep and look at, out of the students that they have, how can we be able to support those students who have got a shortfall? Therefore, we'll come and show them from the national level, HELB can be able to support these students to this level. Then they'll come in to meet the shortfall, specifically to meet their human capital requirement for the county. If a county requires, for example, a cancer doctor, specialist, an oncologist, then they can be able to support people from that county, 2 or 3, to support them in the university so that in future they can support their county. That is the approach we are taking. If they require, for example, TVET graduates, electricians, then we will go to them. They look, we come up with a product for them, which we support people from that county. They get a facility through HELB, and then they'll be able to pay. And that money goes back to create a revolving fund specifically for that county. That money doesn't come to the national government. You are not supporting the national government. You are creating a revolving fund for people from your own county. But it supplements the national government because the resources that we would have used then will be able to use for other Kenyans.
What percentage of need would that meet?
No, we have done our math. If you go to a county, you can be able to meet there because it's their requirement. If you add on to all counties, you can even go to up to 10 to 15% of the need.
10 to 15%
across
of need.
Yes, not HELB's need of the county. We are looking at the county.
The question I'm asking is,
yes.
First of all, how much money would HELB need to run this loans program?
This year we are talking about 72 billion.
72 billion.
Yes.
And you're assured of how much?
We are assured of 41 billion. And I want to say that these are huge increments.
Sorry, that's the exchequer.
78 billion.
78 billion.
Yes. We are assured of 41 billion.
41 billion is the allocation from the national government.
Yes.
So from your other collections, how much are you estimating?
We are estimating to get 6 billion from loan recoveries.
So that takes you to 47.
Yes.
You still have a shortfall of about 2021.
Yes.
How do you meet that?
And that is how we are saying if we can be able to get, even if it's 1 billion from each county, then we are able to meet that shortfall and even exceed.
Okay.
Yes.
1 billion. Okay.
And that is a modest figure.
1 billion is a lot of money. Some counties allocated some 5-6 billion shillings to run their.
No, I'm looking at it averagely. Even if you got half or even 100 million from a county, we were getting from Kakamega, we were able to raise 20 million each year, and it has gone to 100 million.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Many questions pending there. But Dr. Manyasa, then, do you have any issues about that model? Because human capital needs for a county, meeting HELB, it's still education, and it's higher education, still national.
I'm even surprised that my county, Kakamega, would have scarcity of human capital as to invest in developing any. Because if they are doctors, we have more than the county can absorb already. And I think teachers, for instance, Kakamega County leads in the number of teachers who graduated and remain unemployed in the country. So I am wondering that human resource shortfall that county will be investing in higher education. I would agree if they're partnering with HELB on TVET, because TVET is a devolved function. To the extent that there is partnership around TVET, I understand. It's a devolved function. But for university education, it's just creation of confusion. There is no other way to define that. Because this country, first of all, human resources created for the country. The reason higher education is a national function is because it develops national human resource. It can now not be devolved and privatized to counties because there is no structure that the county will use to bond anyone that they train in that model to work in that county. There's no law on which they will base any bonding of such a person. So they will train whoever it is, but that person retains the right to work wherever they want. And they are Kenyans. The Kenyan government has a right to deploy that person anywhere in the country. So I think that any partnership to fund higher education with counties is creation of confusion. But I encourage help to partner with them on TVET.
Okay.
that will give you maybe more resources to devote to higher education if counties can supplement at TVET, since you now have TVETs as well within your mandate. But for me, a more fundamental problem is what Mheshimiwa Sosiona alluded to. If a tendency to believe that all our problems can be solved by money. So all the solutions we offer is we put in these billions, we put in this, we put in that. That is not the problem. The problem is, what is it we want to achieve? And what do we need to achieve what we want to achieve? If we are looking at quality education, which is a right for every child in Kenya, what are the resources that we need? Those resources are not entirely in money form. They are resources that communities can provide if we have proper organization.